So pretty much a landmark case came out. Let me break it down. If you're watching and you haven't already hit the like button, I need you to tap that screen. Let's get the likes up, guys. Let's see if we can get to 50 likes tonight. Here we go. This lady explains it nicely.
The United States Supreme Court will impact your rights, your representative, and every election from here on out. It's a big deal in case you weren't picking up what I'm putting down. By now, you already know the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 on a case out of Louisiana about one of its congressional districts. Now, I know that doesn't sound like anything you should get yourself involved in or care about, but you might want to, because today's ruling, according to the conservative supermajority, chips away at the 1965 Voting Rights Act, but according to the liberal justices, it goes way farther than that. They say today's ruling effectively guts the last bit of that landmark civil rights legislation. Either way you cut it, millions and millions of Americans will be affected by this ruling, and there may be some unintended consequences that we haven't even thought about yet. So let me explain. The whole issue in front of the court today is about that one congressional district in the state of Louisiana. The Constitution says the way we are all supposed to be represented by members of Congress is based on the population of our state, and that representation should be proportional. Now, that doesn't just go, by the way, for representation in Washington, D.C. It also goes for your representation in your state government, too. Well, in Louisiana in 2020, the census awarded the state 6 U.S. House seats based on the state's population. State lawmakers drew a new map to create those 6 House districts. That map included 1 majority black district out of the 6, even though black voters make up about 1/3 of the state's population. So in 2022, a group of black voters sued the state saying, hey, this map is a violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which says you, the state, are not allowed to draw new district maps that dilute the power of our minority vote. A federal judge agreed and said, yep, it's a violation. State of Louisiana, you need to redraw that map. And by 2024, Louisiana had followed the judge's order. And Louisiana drew a new map that created not 1, but now 2 majority black districts. Because, remember, representation is based not only on population, but also should be proportional. Well, a group that describes itself as non-African American sued and said that new map with those 2 majority black districts is a violation of the Equal Protections Clause of the Constitution. And today, the conservative supermajority of the United States Supreme Court said, yeah, that new map with those 2 majority black districts is unconstitutional. Now, importantly, Justice Samuel Alito, who wrote the majority opinion, said that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is still intact. He said the justices are not getting rid of it altogether. However, the reality is today's ruling is going to make it way more difficult to prove that a state is violating Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act by gerrymandering a map that dilutes the minority voice. Alito says a plaintiff now has to prove that the state intentionally drew its district to afford minority voters less opportunity because of their race. He went on to say they have to prove that a districting scheme denies members of a racial group the same opportunity as other voters to elect the candidate they prefer. Prior to today, if the minority voters wanted to challenge a state map under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, they had to meet a much lower threshold. And they certainly didn't have to prove the state intended to dilute their vote. But why? Why is this happening now? Well, it's sort of been a feature of the Roberts Court for a while, but generally, the conservative justices on this court do not believe racial discrimination is really a problem in this country. Certainly not the way it was in the past. In fact, in his majority opinion today, Justice Alito wrote, vast social changes have occurred throughout the country, and particularly in the South, which have made great strides in ending entrenched racial discrimination. Now, whether you agree with that or not is your choice, but I can tell you the liberal justices absolutely do not agree with that statement. And Justice Kagan, who wrote the dissent, said this ruling is absolutely going to take us backwards, and it is going to make it harder to prove that a state is diluting minority voices. She wrote, there is a substantial risk that intentional discrimination would go undetected, uncorrected, and undeterred. The consequences are likely to be far-reaching and grave. Today's decision renders Section 2 all but a dead letter. In the state where that law continues to matter, the states still marked by residential segregation and racially polarized voting, minority voters can now be cracked out of the electoral process. So that's the ruling, that's the decision. So how is this going to impact you? Wow, this ruling is probably going to set off another flurry of redistricting in the states, especially in the South, where there are several minority districts like this one in Louisiana. We've already seen President Trump launch an extremely rare mid-decade redistricting war that has shifted congressional districts for voters in lots of states like Texas and California, Virginia, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, Utah, and probably Florida too. But here's the thing. That redistricting based on today's ruling may not impact the midterms because many of those states are sort of already in the primary election season, so it might be too late to redistrict now. However, we should all brace ourselves because major redistricting wars will start right back up after the midterms, just in time for the 2028 presidential election.
Okay, that was a whole lot. Gray, we talk a lot privately. You made it very clear you will never be a Republican. You've explained to me that you think that they're racist. Was this racist? This was a predominantly conservative Supreme Court, half of which, a quarter of which President Trump has nominated. He's put 3 of the Supreme Justices on there. And one more, rumor has it, guys, you heard it here first, one more, Alito, is going to retire in the next year or two. We're hearing he is going to be out soon. Was this racist?
If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, is it a duck? But with basically me doing the new party, I've seen more Black Republicans than I've ever seen in my entire life. So maybe it's gonna backfire. I mean, like so much Black MAGA, maybe they go back, change that district, and then it completely backfires. Who knows?
Well, okay, okay. I'm gonna play a clip, and then I'll get Kamal and Asma into Ratchet into the conversation. This is the Fox News version of it. Let's hear what they had to say.
Good morning. Okay, so this at first blush here is a win for the plaintiffs who were not Black plaintiffs. They were non-minority voters who challenged this decision. These 2 districts that were minority majority. Essentially, Louisiana had drawn up districts and then they were told in a legal battle that they had not represented Black and minority voters sufficiently. They went back and drew a second district. So they had 2 of these minority majority districts. Well, then non-Black voters sued and said, this is now violating our rights on the basis of race. So it looks like this is a 6-3 decision. There is one concurrence here, but it looks like the dissent sticks together with Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. But here's what the majority says. They say in some, because the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an additional majority-minority district, no compelling interest justified the state's use of race in creating SB 8. That was those 2 new districts. That map is an unconstitutional gerrymander, and its use would violate the plaintiff's constitutional rights. Now, this opinion is almost 100 pages long, so we're going through to see if it says something more broadly about the Voting Rights Act. That had been the fear on the left, that somehow this decision, if it was favorable for those challenging these maps, that it would somehow do a big chunk out of the Voting Rights Act. Haven't gotten to language that suggests that yet. It sounds like this decision is primarily about what happened in Louisiana. So we'll keep digging through this. But for right now, it's a win for those who were challenging these 2 minority majority districts. Now, as we read through this and figure out the broader implications, there were 20+ districts across the country that would have potentially lined up with this decision. They could be open to challenges that they were drawn on the basis of race, or that it was the primary factor that was used in drawing those districts. Most of those are throughout the South. So we'll look to see if there's enough sweeping language in this particular decision that may have a domino effect on some 20 other districts. Could be huge for the midterms. We'll continue.
Kamal, I know you're probably itching, biting at the opportunity to talk to the chat, but I want you can talk to the chat, but I also want you to answer, was this racist in your opinion? Go
ahead. First of all, I was hoping today I didn't have to talk to the chat, but I guess I am. We'll get to you in a little bit. Second of all, ain't gerrymandering been going on for years? I'm confused. Why the fuck is this? Why? Why is this important right now? They've been gerrymandering, slicing up shit maps here and there, all through districts, local, all through the United States. It don't fucking matter. Gerrymandering been a thing for the fucking since they done politics. Like, I don't know why this shit important right now, to be honest. You feel me? I'm just kind of confused because I'm like, hey, this been here for years. So, and they do it in red states, they do it in blue states, right? So I'm like, you know what? Does this fuck up the money for certain districts? Let me get my inner Ken Billions on, you feel me? Where's the money going? You feel me? Is this going to fuck up money in the black districts? That's what I care about. Fuck all that voting shit. By the end of the day, most states, the color is going to be either red or fucking blue. It's only a few states that are swing states. Let's be fucking real. All right. Texas might be one of them. So I see why the importance of all that gerrymandering is important. But most states are red and blue. Now, I'm done with my rant. On to the chat. Y'all don't take this Neanderthal John serious. He been sucking on his mama titty since he was 14. We can't take nobody serious like that. Go sit your slow ass in the digital corner. And with that being said, let's proceed with the broadcast. Shout out to my FBA fan. Anyway.
Okay. Ratchet, was this racist or not? What do you think?
Man, okay, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and they're going to be two separate thoughts. I think my knee-jerk reaction, my first initial reaction when I saw this was to automatically feel like, man, this is racist. You know, this is voter suppression. This is them trying to take voting power away from African Americans. And then once I let that initial feeling subside, I was able to think it through. And as the clip went on and I was listening, what I'm getting from it is that, okay, they're doing this now initially to limit the power of Black voters in Louisiana. But I think what a larger picture is down the road that we're going to see is that they're trying to do this to limit their largely Hispanic vote that's coming and has arrived in the US. I think this is something that the conservative Supreme Court is putting into place to have the infrastructure to combat the large increase of minority voters in this country. And so nowadays, we don't ever talk specifically about Black people. We've gotten lost in the word minority. Minority now barely means Black people. It means they're talking about the Hispanic vote. And so I think they're being preemptive to have the structure to limit the power of the Hispanic vote that came in under the Biden administration. So that's one. Two, as the lady was talking, it made me think about this book that I read. It was called what was it called? The White Bonus. The White Bonus. And I always think about this quote that the author said. She was like, what's going on in America, the reason why we don't have, free healthcare, free college, the reason why there's so many restrictions around voting is like, white America, what it does is it'll have Black Americans build a ladder and then they'll climb up top and then pull the ladder up with them, and then say, well, figure out how to get yourself up here. You know what I mean? So a lot of the things that the booby traps that are placed out in America for Black Americans to step in, white Americans don't think down the line in the future to say, how will this impact my grandchildren? How will this impact my children? They only think about what's foreseeable right now and how they can limit minorities from getting ahead. It's sad, it's short-sighted, and it never works. It never works the way that they think it will. It just hinders America from doing better. And so I just think it's more of the same. It's like, do people ever get tired of just nonsense and being evil and doing stupid stuff? Like, America could be so great if everybody could just stop being racist and stupid. So I rest my case.
That was a very good case. And my other side of this is white people are actually the minority in this country. They will be in the next 20 years. So I don't think we should.
They know that.
Yeah. And for me, I don't think we should be having voting based on any race. And I know last night, one of our panels, our castmates were very upset that this happened. But when I read it and I did my own research, I have the same conclusion you have, Ratchet. But one more clip, we're going to get our lovely Kimberly in here. This is what Van Jones had to say. And then Kimberly, in your response, I also want you to answer this person's question. I feel like you'll be the best one to answer it.
This moment.
I think it's huge. I think it's devastating. It's the end of an era. This is the bill
that John Lewis was beaten almost to death to get passed. This was the crowning achievement of the civil rights era, the crowning achievement of Dr. King's life work. It's part of why he was murdered. It brought America out of this horrific past that we've been stuck in for 200 plus years of enslavement, 100 years of racist Jim Crow, terror, lynchings, no rights, no protection. This was the moment that we really became a democratic republic in the full sense of the word. Dr. King kind of becomes the final founder of this republic in that moment. To take that, ball it up, and throw it in the toilet, flush it, and have the president crowing about it is devastating. Because these states, I'm a Southerner, I grew up in Tennessee, these states still have that unfortunate legacy where everybody's not treated fairly, and everybody knows it. And yet now the Supreme Court says we're going to turn a blind eye to that, not just history of discrimination, but the present tense of it. Not good.
And the implications, I mean, you're talking about something obviously existential in many ways. The implications practically, Congressman, are such that could actually affect the way these midterms go. Right. It's been quite a while where if you looked at any betting market or polls or whatever, when it comes to the House, never mind the Senate, but the House, Democrats had a huge advantage. That could shift, right? You're seeing this happening in state after state. And you had Marsha Blackburn today. She is now calling for the elimination of all Democratic seats in the state of Tennessee, your home state.
Absolutely.
Okay, as a result, we should talk about this Voting Rights Act, going to make that entire state red with her proposal. Florida lawmakers today passed Governor DeSantis's push, which would attempt to give Republicans 4 more seats in Florida. That could mean the House. I mean, this could be game, set, match.
Well, I think in the short term, there will be limit what states can do because voting has already begun in many places. Now, Florida, they're going to try to squeeze out 4 seats. Now, I think it's a big lift. Ask the guys in Texas. They think they're creating 5 additional Republican seats. They'll be lucky to win 3 of them. So that's a problem. You just pointed out Tennessee. Tennessee has one African-American majority district that's in Memphis, represented by a white congressman, Steve Cohen. So, yeah, this is a setback for the Voting Rights Act. By the way, I voted to reauthorize it in 2006. Right. That was the last time for 25 years, and obviously there have been these intervening court rulings. And here we are. By the way, it was an overwhelming vote. It was Republican Congress, Republican President George Bush. So we've come a long way.
Well, it shows how things have changed.
But I just think it's so important to recognize that because when it was time, and you were a great hero in this, when it was time to reauthorize it, Congress looked at it and said, you know, we think there's still problems here. We need to reauthorize it. And it was bipartisan, massive majority. George W. Bush signed it. So what you have is, in that short period of time, a decade or so, a different bunch of Republicans decided, we just don't care. We would rather win seats than to make sure we have a Democratic Republic.
All right, Kim, I have you respond. Do you think this is racist? And then also answer this person's question.
Does anyone think that the Democratic Party needs to speak on blue-collar issues, talk on housing, food prices, than what they have been? Yeah, yes, I do. Butch Ware talks about all of that. So I sat out the special election for California's Prop 50, which was gerrymandering. I was not going to vote for it because gerrymandering is voter suppression. There shouldn't be gerrymandering based on race to benefit either party, including the Democrats, because the Democrats use gerrymandering to benefit them as well as the Republicans do. And I didn't vote against it because I also thought, well, at least the Democrats are playing the same game the Republicans have been doing because they started gerrymandering the last couple 5-6 years, even going back to the Powell memo and all that. So at least they're starting to, quote unquote, you know, stand up for themselves, defend themselves, grow a pair, say have you. But overall, it's voter suppression. So that's what it is. It's racist when you do it to benefit either of your political agendas, not just the Republicans, and the Democrats do it too. But the problem with the Democrats is that they will pander, they will lure you, they'll get you to vote for them. And then, for example, Barack Obama will give you DACA, but he won't give you citizenship for children who came here. The Democrats will give you a little bit here and there, just para complacer, to keep you from revolting, breads and circuses. The Republicans are the complete opposite. They would revoke DACA or they wouldn't have even passed it to begin with. Does that make sense? So either way, when they do things like this with specifically gerrymandering, which I think should just be illegal overall, not just based on race, but based on anything, any demographic, is that they use it to their own political advantage. That's the problem with overall. I had this conversation with Gray at length, but it's the duopoly. It's that there's two parties, and if there's a Venn diagram of the donors that donate to them, it's a big fucking circle. Like George Carlin said, it's a big old club, and you ain't in it. We ain't in it. It's
That's
at
a
our
good quote.
expense. So,
You said it best, Kim. And yeah, I mean, so pretty much, yeah, I mean, we'll see how this plays out. I'm curious to see how it plays out, but we're going to switch gears here, guys. We're going to go to the funniest conversation of the night. Elon Musk, baby mama.
Can I piggyback real quick off of what Kim was saying when it comes to the Van Jones clip? Like, I think the Democratic Party, like she says, like with the pandering sometimes, like anytime something happens that could potentially, you know, affect the Black community, we go all the way back to bringing up slavery, all the way back to undoing the works of Martin Luther King, instead of like, okay, focusing on this particular thing and how it's going to impact us now. I do think that it's like a lot of fear mongering that's going on. Like, you know, anytime the Republicans do something, it's like, guys, listen, we're going to be back out in the field tomorrow if we're not afraid. It's like, no, let's think soberly about this, what's happening currently, and how does this affect us currently? We can't keep going back to how this affected us from 200 years ago. And so that's how they lose me sometimes with doing that. It's like, okay, I do think this is an issue, but you don't have to make me afraid. Help me to know the information so that I can vote accurately about it. Don't fear monger me.
Well, I will say the Republicans fearmonger too. That's why you get a lot of like those
No, they both do.
True.
Like the white replacement theory BS.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna talk about that now.
They both use the racial card. There should just be no racial